Today we're tackling two important and required parts of your auto insurance policy that may confuse you a little bit: bodily injury and property damage liability. I know, anything but exciting, right? But stick around, these parts could save your wallet from a nasty surprise if you ever cause an accident with that lifted F-250 at the next red light. So let's get into it. Bodily injury liability. Sounds intense, right? But don't let it stress you out. All that means is if you injure someone in a car accident, then the insurance company that you pay a premium to every month will cover those injuries up to a set limit. Also covered within that limit could be any lawsuit that arises from the bodily injuries that you caused. Time out. We all know how insane medical bills can be, right? And what about the propensity for lawsuits in Georgia? Crazy. We'll ponder on this for a minute and we'll come back to it a little bit later. Time in. Now, focusing on the state of Georgia, bodily injury liability is a requirement for all drivers to have. But the minimum requirement is extremely low, so low it'll make your stomach hurt. It's kind of like bringing a water pistol to a fire. Yeah, it'll help, but you'll probably want a little bit more just in case, right? So let's look at an example of where bodily injury liability could come into play. So picture this. You rear end that lifted truck that stops in front of you at the red light because your kids are fighting in the back seat and you've had enough. So you turn around to show them who's boss. Before you know it, the driver of that truck has a broken leg. His passenger has broken arms from the airbag. Your insurance company would pay each person up to a set limit for their medical expenses, and all hurt persons in that truck for their medical expenses up to a set limit. For reference, we will just use Georgia's minimum requirement for this explanation. So each person in that truck would have their medical expenses covered up to $25,000, and the total covered amount for medical expenses for all injured persons in that truck, oftentimes called the aggregate limit, would be set at $50,000. But remember, coverage for lost wages, pain and suffering, or even lawsuits would also come and be included in that limit as well. Such a simple everyday example, right? Insurance takes care of it and it's over, but not so fast. Many accidents start out small with minor injuries, but suddenly medical bills can pile up like a snowball rolling down a hill and lawsuits are filed. Next thing you know, you go from thinking your insurance will take care of everything to having your wages garnished and that brand new Polaris side-by-side with 37-inch tires need to be sold in order to pay any amount in excess of your coverage limits. We don't want that. Many do not realize this, but it is important to remember that any expenses in excess of your coverage limits put your wallet and your assets at risk. So let's move on to property damage liability. This is very similar to bodily injury liability, which explains why they are normally paired together on the policy documents. Property damage liability covers damage you cause to someone else's property in an accident. That can be their car, building, fence, mailbox, etc. So just imagine hitting a parked truck at the hunting and fishing outlet and you find out it's the biggest and baddest truck in the county. Without property damage liability, or even with a low set coverage limit, your bank account could be as wrecked as that truck. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I have a basketball team of kids living in my house, and I cannot afford several $1,000s out of pocket because I refused to purchase proper liability coverage limits. Now, I've mentioned before, in addition to medical expenses, Georgia courts can be a little, let's just say, enthusiastic with their verdicts. And if you're underinsured, that enthusiasm could cost you big time. Some would say even more than the referees cost UGA a national championship in 2018 when they called Tyler Simmons offsides. But look, I get it. Insurance is not fun to discuss. Bodily injury and property damage liability might sound like absolute snooze fest material. But at the end of the day, it's all just about protecting your financial well-being from, oops, I didn't see that car stop in front of me type of situations. So with this new information, you may be wondering about where your bodily injury and property damage liability coverage limits are set. You may be suddenly concerned that you're severely underinsured. Fear not, for the force is with you. Well, actually, just HM Advisors is with you, but whatever. It sounded cool, so I used it. Bottom line, too many folks are underinsured, and oftentimes it's because they think increased coverage is just too expensive. However, increased coverage actually may not be as much as you would think. Look, Georgia's minimum liability requirements are kind of like one-size-fits-all jeans. They rarely fit anyone well, so would you prefer $50 more a month for adequate coverage, or face the risk of not being able to afford that new Lululemon wardrobe? Look, if you have any questions after watching this video, you can contact me at 478-922-8531, or you can email me. I would love to have a conversation with you about your current bodily and property damage liability coverage limits and discuss what would be adequate for you. So thanks for sticking around, y'all. Drive safe, and we will holler at y'all later.